From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
People don't realize how much it takes a toll on you not having your dad around in your life.
Mandi knows all too well what it's like to grow up without a dad. In 2002, her father, Ty Lopes, was sentenced to life in prison for the rape and murder of 18-year-old Renee Ramos.
He was a really good parent to me. I think he was just a really good dad.
When she was little, Mandi's dad was one of the most consistent and supportive figures in her life. And then, one day, he was gone.
When was the first time you ever heard that your dad might have been suspected or
When did
accused?
I first know? When he was arrested. I went inside the house and everybody was watching TV and my mom was crying and it was my dad on the TV. It just said the suspect for the murder of Renee Ramos was caught.
That night, one of the first phone calls Ty Lopes made from jail was to his daughter.
My dad called me and said it was all a mistake. They're trying to accuse him, say that he killed Renee, and he kind of laughed and he's like, "Can you believe that?" And he's like, "I'll be home later." So that was it.
How old were you?
I was 13.
I'm Susan Simpson.
And I'm Jacinda Davis.
I'm an attorney and investigator.
And I'm a true crime TV producer.
And this is Proof, Season 2, Murder at the Warehouse. Proof is a Red Marble Media production in association with Glassbox Media. For the past year, we've been reinvestigating what happened after 18-year-old Renee Ramos went missing in the spring of 2000. This podcast tells the story of what our investigation uncovered.
New episodes are released on Mondays, and on Thursdays you can catch our sidebar episodes where we talk about the case, talk to guests, and tell you more about what's going on behind the scenes. You can find additional materials about this case on our website at proofcrimepod.com. This is episode 4. I'll be home later.
According to the detectives and prosecutors who investigated this case, Jake Silva and Ty Lopes killed Renee Ramos at a party being thrown by a bunch of high school students. Most of them were under 18, and some of them were as young as 14 years old. So how exactly does 33-year-old Ty Lopes fit into this picture? Why would he have been at a party with a bunch of teenagers? And why did investigators think that he would conspire with a teenage skateboarding crew to commit murder? We went to speak to Ty's family to find out more about him. So you're Ty Lopes' brother?
Yes.
Older, younger?
Younger, by 6 years.
That's Jared Lopes, Ty's younger brother. We met up with Jared at a noisy bar in Modesto and asked him what Ty had been like before his arrest.
He was usually just hanging around the house. He might be in the front yard talking to people, talking to neighbors. He pretty much knew everybody in the neighborhood. Anybody that would still talk to him, he would talk to. But he wasn't going places a lot because he didn't have a driver's license.
Jared described Ty as something of a gregarious homebody, always talking to people but rarely leaving his mother's house where he was living at the time. Was this the Marion Street address?
Yes.
And who was living there at the time?
Well, it would have been myself, my mother, my brother Ty, and my nephew Robert.
Robert, or Robbie Mendoza, was Jake Silva's best friend. The two of them were close, and usually they were out skating the streets of Manteca together. But sometimes they'd hang out at Robbie's house on Marion Street. And once Jake started dating Renee, Renee would come along with him. Did you know Renee? Had you ever met her?
I'd only seen her at my mom's house once or twice, but again, the age difference, I didn't really bother paying any attention to her.
Jared didn't pay much attention to his nephew's teenage friends, but Ty would hang out with them sometimes, because despite the age difference, they had a mutual interest: beer. Robbie and Jake were underage, Ty was not, so Ty would buy them booze, and in exchange, he'd get to help them drink it.
See, Ty, he was kind of an opportunist. If he had beer, he wouldn't go out. If he didn't have beer and guys were like, hey, if you buy us beer, he would have gone.
Ty didn't have a steady job. He worked sometimes, Jared told us, but usually he didn't. Mostly, Jared said, Ty just stayed at their mom's house and mooched off of her, which was one of the many things that annoyed Jared about his brother.
Ty could push buttons like nobody's business. He could figure you out and just annoy you to death.
The relationship between the two brothers was complicated even before Ty's arrest. And Jared is not interested in sugarcoating what he sees as Ty's many flaws.
Ty was just not smart. He was street smart, but he made one poor decision after another. And his heart was usually in the right place, but he just really didn't think things through. He'd give you the shirt off his back, but you'd have to ask him if it was really his shirt or if he stole it from somebody else.
Jared told us he does not believe that Ty would have been involved in killing someone. At the same time, though, he said that when Ty got arrested for Renee's murder, it hadn't been shocking to him.
I was not real surprised, given Ty's history from my earliest recollections. I loved him because he's my brother, but that was kind of the extent of it, because he caused so many problems.
A lot of people we spoke to held harsh opinions about Ty. But Jared told us there was one thing in Ty's life that he had genuinely excelled at.
He was a doting father. He was all about his daughter. He loved his daughter very much, spent as much time with her as he could.
He was like the best dad ever. Like, my mom didn't even take care of me as much as he did.
That's Mandi Lopes again, Ty's daughter. Her mom and dad had a brief relationship, but from the beginning, Ty was always there for her.
My dad cooked me breakfast and made me brush my teeth and stuff like that. He was a parent and he was a good person.
Mandi is her father's staunchest defender. She has never doubted his innocence. And besides, she told us, from what she understands, Ty had been with her when Renee was killed.
The time frame that they gave, it couldn't have been, because I'm at his house 7 o'clock at night on Friday, and I go home at 7 o'clock on Sunday, and I was with him the weekend. And my dad doesn't ever leave me.
Ty had his daughter on Wednesday evenings, and then from Friday night to Sunday night. So, if Renee had been killed the weekend before she was found, then Ty couldn't have done it, Mandi says. He would have been with her, not off at a party at a construction site. Ty's sister, Elena Mendoza, who is the mother of Jake's friend, Robbie Mendoza, was also living in the house on Marion Street at the time of Renee's disappearance.
To the best of my recollection, on the date that Renee was supposedly murdered, he was asleep.
So walk me through that. What do you remember about his alibi, essentially?
During that particular time, I never saw him leave. And I would have heard him, but I don't remember the exact time of death or the date.
Well, they never established an exact time, so it's hard.
Ty has no alibi. Neither does Jake, for that matter. Because no one knows when Renee was actually killed. The most specific the prosecution could get was to say that the party at Home Depot was held on an evening sometime between Monday, which was Memorial Day, through the following Sunday. So, to have an alibi, Ty and Jake would have needed to be able to prove their whereabouts for all 6 of those nights. Even without an alibi, though, Ty's daughter Mandi and his sister Elena say they are certain he is innocent.
Do you know of any incidents of him being violent towards people?
Never. I mean, I've seen him get in a fight before. I've seen him get jumped before by like 6 guys when I was little.
Fights like a sissy.
I've never seen him start some. But, I mean, supposedly at a party and my dad's sitting there raping everybody's friend right there. Why didn't everybody jump him? Why didn't everybody help her?
Ty's brother Jared has a slightly different take on whether Ty was capable of violence.
Ty is all about puffing himself up, but push came to shove, he was kind of a coward.
Was he violent ever?
When he was drunk, yes, he could be violent, but he wasn't hard to deal with. He was more talk.
So investigators determined was that he was involved in an organized mass rape and murder of Renee Ramos.
Yeah, that part of it I don't believe at all. No. I could see him making advances when he was drunk on her, but if she turned him away, I don't see Ty as a rapist. He was a thief through and through, really. But a violent guy, no.
Mandi has grown up hearing people talk about what her dad was like, and most of them don't have nice things to say. So you know the rumors about people calling him a pervert and creepy and...
Yeah, I've heard that. I've seen him checking girls out and stuff like that, but I've never seen him do anything, like, offensive.
Does it bother you to hear that kind of talk about your dad?
Yes, it does. My dad is a very sensitive subject to me.
I can tell you loved him a lot.
I do.
I wanted to give you the chance to kind of like defend your dad.
He might have been a troublemaker, you know, like he didn't watch his mouth at all and stuff like that, but he was not no killer. He didn't rape nobody. I know he didn't. My dad did drink, and then he wouldn't drink and everything would be good and stuff. But when he did drink, he was just messy like that.
Ty could get messy, Mandi told us. And messy would certainly be one way you could describe Ty's relationship with law enforcement in Manteca.
Well, there was the case where he was beat up in the drunk tank by one of the detectives. Yeah. He had said something about, oh, how's your mom? She still live over there on such and such street. And that's what instigated the beating, is the detective took that as Ty making a threat on his mom.
We read that today.
Just before we met up with Jared, we'd actually been at the courthouse and seen records from the incident that he was talking about. So the report was that, like, he threatened to rape the officer's grandmother, which is why the officer had to break Ty's jaw.
Yeah, the report
he
says
had to
that
break his jaw because there was a threat.
Ty threatened to rape his grandmother and said, I know where she lives. And the officer punched him and broke his jaw.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't think there's anything in California Penal Code that says if somebody threatens to rape your grandma, you break their jaw.
Do you think Ty would have threatened to rape his grandma?
No. I think he could say something stupid, but I think, knowing Ty as I do, that he was probably just really, hey, how's your grandma who lives over da-da-da, trying to make a connection. I'm sure they've known each other for years and years. I don't see Ty making a threat like that.
This messy record with the police is why, when Ty was arrested for Renee's murder, Jared had not actually been surprised.
Well, I want to give you ladies my take on it real quick, without you asking the direct question. Ty was such a pain in the ass to the powers that be in that town for so long.
Yeah.
He had been told by the police that we're going to nail you one of these days for something. We're going to make it stick.
In September of 2000, the Manteca police finally did nail Ty Lopes for something. He was arrested, along with Ray Goins and Jake Silva, for the rape and murder of Renee Ramos.
Ty Lopes spent the next 18 months at the San Joaquin County Jail awaiting trial. Despite the murder charges hanging over him, Ty's family remembers that he was in relatively high spirits during this time.
He was just basically saying that he's going to come home, that they don't have anything on him. He was kind of not worried about it. He was like, I'm for sure getting out.
I don't think he was afraid, because prior to his arrest, he was actually acting as an informant. He had been working with the PD to find out who killed Renee, and he was utilizing that to stay out of jail. So that's maybe why he kept upbeat.
This was the first we'd heard anything about Ty being an informant for the Manteca Police Department and helping them with Renee's murder, no less. It was something we knew we'd have to look into. But Jared, Ty's brother, told us he did not doubt Ty's claims that he'd been acting as an informant for the Manteca PD before his arrest.
Ty had a big mouth. He'd tell you, oh yeah, I got busted for this DUI, but they let me off because I turned on these people here. So it was no mystery whatsoever to me that Ty had been used as a CI for Manteca PD many, many times. But he just antagonized them so many times.
Ty's big mouth and penchant for antagonizing people would become a common theme in the criminal proceedings that followed his arrest. Like at the preliminary hearing when Josh Burroughs was brought in to testify in the case for the very first time. Ty's daughter Mandi was there that day.
We all came back in from the recess, and my dad was walking in, and my dad's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. My dad's kind of like a smart ass, I guess.
That was an understatement.
But he walked past Josh Burroughs. So my dad starts like kind of walking all like tough guy, right? And he's like, you effing lying punk to him.
This all took place while everyone was filing back into court, before the hearing began. But as soon as court was in session, Prosecutor Charles Schultz made a record of it. Your Honor, Prosecutor Schultz said, something happened in the courtroom. Mr. Lopes walked in, started at Burroughs, and spoke to him the words, "You fucking lying punk." Mandi told us that, later on though, at Ty's trial, Schultz would tell this story a different way, changing the words Ty had actually used.
Schultz goes, he's threatening him. He says, you're effing going down, punk. And they twisted that and used that against him in court, that he threatened him and said that he was going down.
This outburst with Josh Burroughs was not the only time that Ty seems to have undermined his own defense.
There is a moment in the trial when the judge addresses your dad and says, Mr. Lopes, you're your own worst enemy. Shut your mouth.
Yeah. I remember that.
What'd you think about that?
I don't think he's his own worst enemy, but he just says what he wants. He just can't keep his mouth shut when he has something to say.
In April 2001, while still in jail awaiting trial, Ty contacted Manteca's local newspaper and asked them to send a reporter out to talk to him. The paper quickly sent out reporter Kelly Gordon. The next day, Ty's mugshot was on the front page of the paper under the headline, "DNA is my best friend. Murder suspect says DNA results will set him free." Ty Lopes is quoted in the article explaining why he's so certain he won't be convicted.
Lopes is certain the DNA results will clear his name, and he believes the DNA results will come back negative for Jake Silva and Ray Goins. Of course the DNA will vindicate me, Lopes said. I am also very confident that it will clear Jake and Ray. I will be completely flabbergasted if it comes back on Jake. There ain't going to be a trial. It won't even go that far. If the freaking criminal justice system works, I will be out of here.
Ty told the reporter that he had no doubts the results of the DNA testing would prove his case. But you have to think that's exactly what Detectives Sousa and Wells must have been thinking too. They must have thought that the DNA was their best friend. After all, they believed that Ty, Jake, and Ray had all taken turns violently raping Renee. If any case could be solved by DNA, surely it was this one. Investigators had sent samples from the rape kit and Renee's fingernails and clothes to the state crime lab. 1 year later, though, they were still waiting on the results. All right, so Jacinda, you and I work on cases all over the U.S. And while working on them, we often subscribe to local papers, local resources, in order to learn about the case and find out new info.
It's true, but the problem is once we're done with researching that particular case, we don't need the subscription anymore. But I always forget to end my subscription.
Me too. It's embarrassing. I'll forget I've done it, and then a year later, I get an alert from the Kalamazoo paper. I'm like, what the heck did I just purchase?
Yeah, but I have newspaper subscriptions across the country. I wish there was a company that could help me manage all of my subscriptions.
And get rid of them when you're done? Well, luckily, there is. Rocket Money is what you need.
Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills.
With Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions, and they're in one place where if I see something I don't want, I can cancel it right then and there. Bye-bye, Kalamazoo paper.
They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple of months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest.
Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions.
That's a lot of money over a year.
Yeah, I don't even want to know how much let's not even talk about that part. Let's get Rocket Money going forward and have it not be a problem.
I mean, imagine the number of Manhattans I could buy for $720.
Depends which town you're in.
True. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/proof.
That's rocketmoney.com/proof.
rocketmoney.com/proof.
You know that's the sound of another sale on your online Shopify store. But did you know Shopify powers selling in person too? That's right, Shopify is the sound of selling everywhere, online, in-store, on social media, and beyond. Cha-ching!
Shopify Point of Sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person.
With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock.
Connect with customers in line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond.
And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution.
Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way.
Do retail right with Shopify.
Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/prooftruecrime, all lowercase.
Go to shopify.com/prooftruecrime to take your retail business to the next level today.
That's shopify.com/prooftruecrime. After their arrests, Jake, Ty, and Ray all obtained or were appointed their own individual defense attorneys. And those attorneys brought on defense investigators to investigate the case for themselves. Well, actually, Jake's attorney never got an investigator, so there wasn't much investigation done on his behalf. But both Ray and Ty did have defense investigators who quickly got to work. And for both, step one had been to go talk to Josh Burroughs for themselves. The following recordings are taken from the defense investigators' interviews with Josh in February and March of 2001.
Did you see her get killed?
No. If I seen her get killed, I would immediately call the police. I mean, that's fucked up. So I would report it with quickness.
Okay, now this is very serious. Do you have any idea who killed Renee Ramos?
No, I don't.
Well, I doubt that Jake did it.
Anyway, I doubt it.
Yes, Josh tells the defense teams, he'd given detailed statements to the police describing how he'd witnessed Renee's murder at the Home Depot. He just hadn't expected that the police would believe him.
I did hear about on the news she was beating her raped. So I just told him that she was beating her raped. But I just thought about it off the top of my head, like, that just flowed out.
Okay, but were you a little bit concerned that the police were going to know that you didn't know what you were talking about?
No, I wasn't concerned. I was going to be happy if they found it out, so they can, okay, we know that you didn't see anything, blah, 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 go on with your life. I thought they kind of see that the story that I told them was kind of outrageous, so they can move along.
If Josh Burroughs had told the defense investigators that everything he'd said to the police had been a lie, then it's possible the case against Ty and Jake and Ray would have ended right there. It wasn't that simple, though.
Okay, well, when you first got to the party, can you tell me how many people were there?
Yeah, I'd say 20 to 45 maybe.
Josh continued to insist that there really had been a party at Home Depot. Although he also says it had nothing to do with Renee's murder. Renee went missing at the end of May, and this party, he says, was in March or April. Okay, so what exactly is Josh's story then? What is he saying actually happened on whatever night that whatever he's talking about took place? The answer is, it depends on which of Josh's stories you're looking at. By the time trial rolls around, Josh has given at least 18 different statements. 10 to detectives, 8 to the defense. And every single one of those statements is different. So which one of those statements is Josh's real story? Which of those statements does the prosecution think is the truth? When Detectives Souza and Wells testify at Jake's and Ty's trials, they present the jury with their preferred version of Josh's story. They do so by picking out brief snippets from across Josh's 10 different statements to them, mixing and matching his various claims and reassembling them into a single, relatively simple narrative. And actually, that's the same thing you've heard in this podcast so far. That's what we've done. You've heard a collection of snippets from Josh's interviews, brief sound bites that we picked out and put in chronological order to present Josh's story to you in as concise and coherent a way as possible. But this method of presenting Josh's story is inherently misleading. It creates the false impression that something called Josh's story exists, when it doesn't. It's not just that Josh's 18 different statements contradict one another. It's that each statement contradicts itself, repeatedly, sometimes within the same breath. Rather than trying to explain what I mean by this, though, it's better just to let you hear it for yourself. You're going to hear now part of Josh's March 2001 interview with Ty Lopes' defense attorney, and we're going to play it in one mostly continuous block, albeit with some light editing still to remove some of the more repetitive tangents, just to make it a little bit less painful to sit through. Full disclosure, though, it's still kind of painful to sit through. But stick with us here for a moment anyway. It's the only way to show you the reality of what investigators were dealing with when it came to Josh Burroughs.
Who did you recognize among the people who were present inside the building when you got there?
I recognized a couple girls, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Okay.
But I recognized Jake, and I recognized Ray. Ty was there for a while when he got beer and came back.
Okay. Now,
I kind of don't know for a fact if Ray was there or not. I just kind of remember him being there.
And you said Ty was there. Did you know him very well as of the night of this Home Depot party?
Nah, didn't know him that good. I mean, I've seen him a couple times. I'd say it was a couple handshakes. About it.
Now, you said he was there and he left to go get beer?
Yeah. He went and got beer, because now that I think about it, because nobody else was there that old enough to buy beer besides Chris. And Chris was with me. Because nobody else was there that was old enough to buy beer. And I can't really figure out if, I think I've seen Ray there. And,
how old is Ray?
Ray? He's old enough to buy beer. But I'm saying Ty because fucking, I really can't say for a fact it's Ray.
All right, so Ty left and went to get beer. How long was he gone?
That part I really don't know, because that I just kind of thought of my own. that he went and got beer because nobody else was old enough.
So you didn't see Ty leave, but you're assuming that at some point he left and went and got liquor?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever see him come back?
No.
Did anything unusual happen at the party?
Now that I do remember. Yeah, I saw Ray slap. I think it was. That's what's tripping me right now. Is I remember seeing Ray slap Renee, and I do remember seeing Jake and Ty go behind a wall.
Okay. Would it be fair to say you saw Renee get slapped? You're sure of
Yeah,
that?
I know for a fact she got slapped.
Okay, what makes you think it was Ray Jones?
I don't know. Whenever I think about that, his name just pops up in my head.
Okay, can you picture the slap in your mind?
Kind of. I didn't actually see a slap, but I seen a hand come back, and then a face go like that.
What type of lighting was there in the building?
A couple people had like flashlights, and we also had candles.
Do you know why people have brought candles?
It's probably an effect. Like, I know there's probably ecstasy there because there's people raving the candles kind of like slowly like that. And that's what they do in rave parties when they get those glow sticks and they go like that. And actually, a lot of people take ecstasy at rave parties. Well, I just assume that there's ecstasy there.
Okay. I'll come back to that. Okay, so you saw what you think was Renee being slapped, and you think the person who slapped her was Ray Jones. Okay.
Yeah.
Did Renee yell or shout that you could hear or respond?
No, I didn't hear anything. I heard an annoying wom wom though.
Heard
like annoying wom wom in my ears. Like this. Kind of like, kind of hard to explain. Like when you get like a bad migraine, it goes wom wom wom.
For an attorney, a witness like Josh Burroughs is a guaranteed headache. No matter what side of the case you're on, you know that this is not going to be a fun day at the office. Because what are you even supposed to do with a statement like this? For a prosecutor, Josh Burroughs is not your first-round pick for star witness. But while not ideal, there is a way to make this work. The strategy is to acknowledge the witness's many lies while emphasizing that the spine of the story is still true. And in most of Josh's statements, not all, but most, Josh does describe going to a party at the Home Depot where he sees both Ty Lopes and Jake Silva. And that, the prosecutor will say, is the core truth underneath the layers of lies. And for a defense attorney, a witness like Josh is a nightmare in the opposite direction. Sure, you'll have no problem impeaching him and convincing the jury that he's a liar, but you're also left playing whack-a-mole with someone's fever dream. When a story bends and twists in that many directions, you can't pin it down in a way to meaningfully refute it. For example, if the spine of Josh's story is that there really was a party at Home Depot, with teenagers drinking and doing drugs and raving with candles, then how come no one at the Home Depot ever saw any sign of it? Well, Josh can explain that one. There was no evidence of a party, he says, because someone told him that they'd give him a free bag of weed if he cleaned everything up.
Can you tell me who gave that baggie to you?
Nah, I didn't know who it was. They just said, here's a bag of weed, take this trash out, and it's yours. And I was like, alright.
Is this a complete stranger?
Yeah.
Okay, and he just kind of came up to you out of the blue and said, hey, I'll get some marijuana if you take the trash out.
Yeah.
Josh says that he bagged up about 10 bags of trash in all. He didn't dispose of those bags all by himself, though. As he was walking out of the Home Depot, bags of trash in hand, he found some teenagers who were driving around in a gray Mustang with maroon-colored spots.
And there's also fools doing some wheelies.
Now, when you say these fools were doing wheelies, can you be more specific about that?
Not really wheelies, but donuts.
And by donuts, you mean they're driving around in circles and kicking up dust?
Yeah.
And you asked them to help you?
Yeah. Just basically put in reverse, get the wheel stuck, and just have it kick all the mud out, and then we just made a big old hole.
Josh explains that he asked the guys in the maroon-spotted Mustang to help him dispose of the trash. They poured the remaining beer onto the dirt of the construction lot, And then they had the Mustang's tires spin out in the resulting mud until they dug out a pit that was deep enough to bury the trash from the party. So that's why no evidence of the party at Home Depot was ever found.
The clips you've heard so far in this episode all come from Josh's interviews with the defense teams. But to be clear, Josh's statements to Detective Souza and Wells were not any more coherent. For example, one of the key parts of Josh's story is how he saw Jake and Ty strangle Renee with her own bra. This becomes a crucial point at trial. Because how could Josh have known Renee was strangled with her bra unless he'd seen it himself? But here's what Josh actually told the detectives. This is from a portion of Josh's interrogation where the detectives are showing him a diagram of the outside areas around the Home Depot, and he's pointing to the spots where people were hanging out when the murder happened.
Did they go inside Home Depot?
I didn't see. But then I saw her bra strap. And then,
So whose bra strap?
I don't know. I think it was hers. And then somebody came out yelling, she got strangled. And I was like, I don't know. And then,
Okay, hang on here. You saw a bra strap over here?
kind of over here. And I saw him like that.
I'm a little confused here, Josh. Was Renee struggling with these people?
No.
Why did her bra end up over here?
No, over here.
Well, okay. Inside?
No. Right outside, just like right outside.
How did that happen? It didn't just fall off. You saw a bra here? How did she get strangled with her bra strap if her bra is here and she's in here?
Somebody came out yelling saying she got strangled.
You might be wondering why Josh's constantly changing stories were not a problem for the prosecution. And the answer is, they were a problem, at least when it came to the case against Ray Gones. Josh has never been documented telling the same story twice. But even by Josh's standards, his stories about Ray are frankly a shit show. In some of Josh's stories, Ray is busy showing off skating tricks to Fuji while Renee is being strangled. Sometimes, Ray himself rapes and helps bury Renee. Sometimes, Ray isn't even at the Home Depot. But the day before the party, they were all hanging out at Fuji's place, and Josh saw Ray punch Renee in the face before forcibly abducting her by shoving her into the back seat of a white car and driving away, never to be seen again. These conflicting statements are probably why Renee's friends have never had a clear understanding of what Ray's involvement in the case had been. Here's what Renee's friend Lori told us when we asked her about Ray.
Refresh my memory. What was Ray Gomes like? What was he in this case?
He was the same as Ty.
So, like, he was there when...
Burroughs says that Ray was there when raped her.
And this was all just from what Josh was saying.
Yeah.
He was telling a different story every single time he told this story.
Yeah, this is all from Josh. Josh is the case.
But then they ended up letting Ray go.
They did.
In March of 2001, after detectives Souza and Wells learn that Josh has been talking to defense investigators, they go to interview Josh once again. And this time, Josh is adamant about one thing. I didn't see Ray there at the party. I just thought he might have been there, he says. So Ray deserves to be let go, but Jake and Ty deserve to stay in prison. We don't have a copy of the audio from this interview, but just from the black and white text of the transcript, you can feel how exasperated Souza and Wells are with Josh. Why did you lie to us before? They ask him. I thought if I didn't tell you guys what you wanted me to say, I'd be in trouble, he answers. But we didn't want a bunch of lies, they respond. We wanted the truth. Well, this time I'm telling you the truth, Josh says. And the truth is I never saw Ray at Home Depot. The detectives asked Josh, okay, but if all of your previous statements were not true, Then how do we know this statement, this time, is true? You don't, Josh tells them. 4 days after this interview, prosecutor Charles Schultz went before the court and announced that, as a result of unspecified information that had recently been brought to his attention, he was dismissing all charges against Ray Gones. Ray left California and was never involved in the case again. He was not called as a witness at either of his former co-defendants' trials.
Months later, in October of 2001, the crime lab notified investigators that the DNA testing in the case had finally been completed. The results were underwhelming. For both the rape kit and the fingernail clippings, the only DNA had belonged to Renee herself. No sperm was found, and the only blood was Renee's. There was only a single item where the crime lab found DNA from someone other than Renee, and that was on the cuttings from Renee's underwear. There, they found sperm cells, which DNA testing showed had come from Jake Silva. But your DNA was found there.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising.
We're 18 years old living out of her car. That's all we did was skate around and have sex, you know, and it would have been weird if it wasn't there.
If Ray's or Ty's semen had been found in Renee's underwear, that would have pretty much conclusively linked them to her murder. But Jake was Renee's boyfriend. His DNA being found in her underwear just links him to being her boyfriend. There's no way to know when the DNA was transferred there. It could have been days or weeks or even longer before the murder took place. Because sperm and the DNA within them remains on clothing even after it has gone through multiple wash cycles. And Jake and Renee were living on the streets, so they weren't doing laundry all that often. Ty Lopes was right. Just as he had predicted, the DNA results did not link him to Renee's murder. But he was wrong about what that would mean. His confidence that that would vindicate him was misplaced. Because the DNA evidence, or rather the lack thereof, changed nothing. And in March of 2002, Ty Lopes went on trial for murder. Did you go to Ty's trial?
The only thing that really sticks out is that when he walked in, he turned around and he looked at all of us and he was like smiling.
Renee's friend Lori attended both Ty's and Jake's trials at the San Joaquin County Courthouse. Ty's trial was first, and Lori's clearest memory from it is not the witnesses who testified or the evidence that was presented. What stands out the most to her is Ty himself.
He looked at Renee's mom and like all of us girls, and he was just smiling at us. And I remember it like enraged me. Because in my head I was just like, why are you looking at us? Like, don't even look at us. It pissed me off. I was so mad.
When Lori told us about Ty smiling at them at trial, I was reminded of what Ty's brother had told us about the police officer who had broken his jaw. Jared thought Ty must have said something to the police officer like, "Hey, how's your grandma who lives over on such and such street?" trying to establish a connection with him, to show the officer that he was friendly with that officer's family. But the police officer had not taken this as a friendly gesture, and neither had Renee's friends and family when Ty smiled at them in the courtroom.
At Jake's trial, which was held 9 months later, there were dozens of witnesses that the prosecutor could call to talk about Jake. But those witnesses were of no use at Ty's trial. If the prosecutor had tried to put them on the stand, well, here's what they would have had to say about him.
I didn't even know what that dude Ty looked like. I had never heard of his name before.
When Ty Lopes came into that whole scenario, I didn't even know who the hell he was.
I was like, who's this dude? That was so out of left field that this some 30-year-old guy is like hanging around a bunch of 17, 18-year-old kids.
What about Ty?
I couldn't tell you anything. He's just some creepy 33-year-old I guess everybody hung out with but me.
Aside from Robbie, who was Ty's nephew, and Jake, who knew Ty through Robbie, most of the teenagers in this case had no idea that Ty existed. In fact, the only witnesses against Ty who actually knew him were the police officers who arrested him. Here's Detective Tony Souza from when he was on Real Interrogations.
I've known him since he was a little kid. We were in Cub Scouts together. He went to school with my wife and my sister.
At the time of Ty's arrest, Josh Burroughs was the only witness that could link Ty to Renee's murder. After Ty's arrest, though, detectives were able to find 2 more witnesses they could use against him. 2 men came forward to say that Ty had confessed to them that he'd committed the murder. Both men had been at the San Joaquin County Jail at the same time as Ty. And at trial, both informants described how, on separate occasions, Ty had approached each of them and told both of them that he needed to confide in someone he could trust. Both informants said Ty told them he'd been present when the girl was killed. And one of them said Ty also told him that he'd raped her.
Now, just as a reminder, jailhouse informants are notoriously unreliable. Anytime you hear about a jailhouse confession, skepticism is warranted. Both of these informants were given deals that allowed them to avoid years in prison in exchange for their testimony. And although both informants had been facing long prison sentences, both had already been released from jail even before Ty's trial began. And the stories from these informants contain curious details that might raise questions as to how accurate they really are. When we saw the trial testimony from these informants, we knew that we'd have to talk to them for ourselves to find out what was going on. But at trial, these informants were crucial evidence for the state because they were used to prove Josh Burroughs had been telling the truth. One of the informants said that Ty had bragged to him that police would never find evidence implicating him in the murder, because he'd had a 14-year-old boy clean up the entire crime scene. This matches what Josh Burroughs said he'd done at the Home Depot. That informant also told investigators that Ty said Renee had been drugged with ecstasy before she was assaulted, which matches, well, sort of matches, what Josh said about how people at the party had been holding up candles and spinning them around as if they were high on ecstasy. While the jailhouse informants were helpful for the prosecution, Josh Burroughs was always the heart of the case. Whether Ty would be found guilty or innocent would depend on whether the jury believed Josh's story about the party at Home Depot. But what version of Josh's story did the jury actually hear? After all, there were at least 18 different versions to choose from. So which one was the jury told about? Renee's friend Lori told us the version of Josh's story that she remembered hearing about at trial.
What came out in trial was that Renee was last seen at Home Depot with Jake and Ty. Jake and Renee were arguing, they were fighting, and everybody was going to leave, but they were left behind. I feel like it was Josh Burroughs that said that.
Actually, it wasn't Josh Burroughs who said that. What Lori is remembering here is what Detectives Souza and Wells said at trial when they were summarizing Josh's statements to them. Here's Kevin reading the trial transcript from when Detective Souza was asked who Josh Burroughs told them was at the party when Renee was killed.
Question. And Josh said that there were a lot of Renee's friends that were there too. Detective Souza. Yes, earlier on in the party there were.
Detective Souza implies that Josh told them Renee's friends had left the party before things turned violent. But Josh never told the detectives that. In his recorded interrogations, Josh tells them that Renee's friends were still there at the party when Jake began strangling her. And as for what Josh said at trial, well, here's what his testimony about Renee's murder actually sounded like. Do you remember him saying, I'm lying, though?
I don't remember now.
His actual testimony was, I lied, I made it all up.
Oh, maybe I do remember that.
On the stand, he was like, nope, it's a lie. It's all a lie. All a lie. Made it all up. It's a lie. At Ty's trial, Josh testified that everything he'd told the detectives was, quote, bullcrap, and that everything he'd said in the case from day one had been lies. When he was asked, if you said it, it was a lie, wasn't it? Josh's response was, well, duh. And prosecutor Charles Schultz agreed that Josh had told a lot of lies. The only time Josh told the truth, Schultz said, was when he talked to Detective Susan Wells. Everything else Josh had said before and after that had been a lie, but what he told the detectives was true. As for why Josh had lied at trial when he denied seeing Renee's murder, well, Schultz could explain why he'd done that.
Remember what Mandi told us about how Schultz had twisted Ty's words and used them against him at trial? Well, she's not wrong about that. Transcripts from the pre-trial hearing show that when Ty saw Josh in court, he said to him, quote, "You fucking lying punk," end quote. But in closing arguments, Schultz told the jury that Ty had said to Josh, quote, "You're going down, punk," end quote. The reason Josh had lied on the witness stand was simple. Josh had been scared of Ty because Ty had threatened his life. This, Schultz said, showed that Ty wasn't mad because Josh was telling lies about him. It showed that Ty was mad because Josh was telling the truth about him, and that Ty needed to shut Josh up.
Here's what Schultz said in his closing arguments about why we know Josh really did witness Renee's murder.
Renee was strangled with her bra. Josh watched them reach down and strangle her with her bra, and then her bra is found up around her neck with her shirt. Is this just coincidence, him describing this scene like this? How can you come to any other conclusion except Josh was there, that he saw this? He saw this woman get murdered. He saw this woman get raped. He saw this. This is what he described.
Josh knowing that Renee was strangled with her bra could be evidence that he'd witnessed the murder. If, in fact, Renee had been strangled with her bra. But is that really what happened?
So what I remember after the trials was she was strangled with her necklaces.
Do you remember her being strangled with her necklaces?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yes. It was ligature marks on her neck from her necklaces.
It's not what they said at trial.
Really?
At trial, they pushed very hard. She was strangled with her bra. Because Burroughs...
Why do I remember necklace then?
No, I heard necklaces.
The medical examiner said the necklaces.
Oh, maybe.
But the prosecutor and Burroughs always say bra. But her bra didn't have any sign of tears or stretching or anything.
Oh, okay. So they're probably making this up just from what they read in the paper. Possibly.
It was a rumor. It's what Josh Burroughs says what he heard go around town.
Oh. Ugh. It's just a mess.
The medical examiner found 3 ligature marks around Renee's neck that corresponded with the 3 hemp necklaces she was wearing. But if Renee wasn't strangled with her bra, then why did Josh tell the detectives that's what he saw?
During trial, there was testimony from someone who had worked with Josh, who had kind of evaluated him and said he's a compulsive liar.
Oh, I feel like I kind of do remember that.
Even when it doesn't benefit him, he's like, I've never met anyone like this. He doesn't lie just to make himself look better or to benefit him. He just lies.
He just can't help himself.
Yeah, I've known people like that.
As far as murder trials go, the state's case against Ty Lopes was not a particularly strong one. There was Josh, who even the prosecutor acknowledged was a liar, who had never told the same story twice. And there were the 2 men who'd been in jail with Ty, who were given generous plea deals in exchange for testifying that Ty had confessed to them. But there wasn't really anything else. In the end, though, it turned out that that was enough. After 4 days of deliberations, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty on 1 count of first-degree murder, and guilty on 1 count of forcible rape.
I just don't understand, how did these 2 men get convicted with no real evidence and only a witness who is a compulsive liar or keeps changing their story? How does that happen?
We would like to talk to the jurors to see what they found to be the most compelling.
Right, what did they decide? what made them really say, like, okay, this is it, yes, for sure.
In California, the names of jurors are kept secret. So usually it's not possible to find out why a jury reached the verdict it did. But after Ty's trial, 2 of the jurors agreed to speak to reporters. They are quoted in articles about Ty's conviction, explaining what it had been that convinced them of his guilt.
2 jurors said after Tuesday's verdict that they believed Burroughs saw the killing. Quote, "The testimony of Joshua Burroughs corroborated so much with the pathologist's testimony on how she died, you just could not overlook that," jury 4-woman Robin London said. Juror Timothy Crawford also said Burroughs' description of the slaying matched the forensic evidence. The prosecution beefed up its case against Lopes with testimony from 2 jailhouse informants who said Lopes told them about the assault on Ramos. Quote, "Ty Lopes' own mouth convicted him," police detective Kevin Wells said, adding that he hopes others who attended the party will come forward.
3 months after his conviction, Ty Lopes was back in court once again, this time for his sentencing hearing. There was no uncertainty over what would happen that day. Under California law, Ty would be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And although the outcome was already a foregone conclusion, at his sentencing hearing, Ty was given an opportunity to address the court directly and speak on his own behalf. We asked Mandi if she'd read us a portion of what her father told the court that day.
I'm telling the truth. I'm an innocent man. I have been wrongfully convicted, and I believe with all my heart Jake is too. He's innocent. I've seen his video statements. He's telling the truth. I did not have anything to do with Renee's murder. Please give me another chance to prove that. Please help me. Find who killed Renee, please. To my family, if I'm sentenced right now, keep your heads up. You know I'm innocent, all of you. Keep your heads held high. Where is Mandi? Mandi, you stay strong, baby. Daddy is gonna get home. He's gonna fight, okay? Your daddy's coming home. Okay, baby? I promised you that. He used to always say stuff like that.
Ty Lopes turned out to be wrong about that, though. He never will be coming home. He was murdered by his cellmate on Halloween Day in 2011. His case and his story ended there. Next week on Proof.
Schultz, the prosecutor, has to be thinking, if I convicted Ty on this, it's a slam dunk against Jake.
Yeah, because now I've got the boyfriend.
Were you confident the jury was going to convict him?
I wasn't confident in anything. The entire time, I felt completely lost.
Did you ever hear anything about another pregnancy?
When she was killed, supposedly she was like 2 months pregnant.
His report says, I asked Lewis to better describe the incident of violence between Renee and Jake. Lewis stated that he heard Jake yelling at Renee, and that this is when he heard Jake tell Renee, "I'll kill you, bitch." He said that Renee replied, "I love you, Jake."
You've been listening to Proof, a podcast by Red Marble Media in association with Glassbox Media. We'll be back next Monday with episode 5. Send us your questions and comments at proofcrimepod@gmail.com. We'll respond during our bonus episodes, Proof Sidebar, on Thursdays. Kevin Fitzpatrick is our executive producer. Our logo was designed by Drew Hasowski, and our theme music is by Ramiro Marquez. Audio production for this episode is by Michael Ulatowski. Our social media manager is Skylar Park. And thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Follow us everywhere with the handle @ProofCrimePod and on our website, proofcrimepod.com.
And lastly, a note to our listeners. If you have any information related to this case, we'd love to speak to you, no matter how small a detail it may seem. It just might be more important than you realize. You can reach us by email or leave us a voicemail at 929-267-3172.
That's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening.